Folks, it is the first Friday of February. It is the final football Friday with the Super Bowl on Sunday. And it is, of course, a Freaky Friday with a 4-pack of your questions on the beat presented by the Waterworks. I couldn't be more fired up for this Friday. And those are all the F's that I've got to give you, Birm.
I've got a couple of F's I can give you. It's a really explosive start to the show. I felt the passion, I felt the enthusiasm, and we're going to attack February with an enthusiasm that others have also displayed in the past.
It is fiery. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We don't cover the NFL, but I do kind of like that this Super Bowl matchup. We really can't lose, can we? I mean, you got Mike Vrabel and Travion Henderson on one side, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, we have some really cool stories with all three of them from the past. And I think back to Jackson in the OG version of Letterman Row, writing his senior tackle that you worked with him on, a diary before he joined Ohio State, going to meet Travion right before he committed and on a trip where the world changed forever. And then I don't know that you and I have ever even talked about like my experience getting to know Mike Vrabel in 2012, back in the days when satellite camps were a thing. But I went up to Sound Mind and Sound Body to spend some time with the coaching staff. And I spent a lot of time being challenged and following around Mike Vrabel and trying to prove myself around him. And that is also a formative experience. I wish that he'd stayed around longer than 2 years, because he's one of the more dynamic personalities that I've ever been around. So that's just touching on all three of those. But like, I hope any of them get a chance to lift the Super Bowl trophy. I'd feel good for all of them.
Do you think that Urban Meyer wishes that Vrabel stuck around for more than 2 years or not?
I mean, it worked out okay with his replacement.
It's funny. I actually have like a close family friend from the Akron, Portage Lakes area of Ohio where Mike is from. And so this close family friend and Vrabel were very close growing up. And so I was introduced to Mike via a proxy, like before, really after his career at Ohio State ended. But I've gotten to know him fairly well because of that. So whenever I think of Mike Vrabel, I think of this pub in Portage Lakes, Ohio that he used to frequent. But that's irrelevant. The point is this: I have 6 older brothers, as a lot of people know. One of my brothers is a Seahawks fan.
So, of course, because why wouldn't he be?
Well, he's only a Seahawks fan because he initially was a Miami Dolphins fan back in the 70s, but then my other brother decided he was going to be a Dolphins fan. And so my brother Joey was like, no, we can't like the same team. So then the Seahawks expanded, became a franchise in the NFL, and then Joey became a Seahawks fan. Long story short, he's now the most annoying Seahawks fan on the planet. So there's a part of me that wants to root for the Seahawks to win on Sunday, for him to have a Super Bowl championship for his team. But he's the type of guy that when he was over here watching the Niners Seahawks game a few weeks ago, like kept repeating the fact that like, this is what a good football team looks like. This is what a team is supposed to look like, not like your bleeping Bengals, blah, blah, blah. And so in that moment, I started rooting for the 49ers in that game. And so I think I'm going into this weekend rooting for the Patriots, which feels weird. And I mean, I know Joey will listen to this and see it. So I'm hopeful that he'll take a different tack this weekend and maybe try a little humility for once, but we'll see.
What's the fun in that?
Go Pats.
Yeah.
Thayer Munford, Travion Henderson, Mike Vrabel on the Patriots. I mean, I like Jackson. I love Jackson, but it's 3-1.
Yeah. Gonna be fun. I hope everybody enjoys their Super Bowl Sunday celebrations. Looking forward to that. And then, boy, we get to really dig into the offseason, which has been really busy so far for Ohio State, but quiet, knock on wood, for the last, 10 days or so, which means that it's a mailbag that got a lot. It has a heavy Arthur Smith flavor, still breaking that down, because we haven't had an introductory press conference with him or heard from Ryan Day, which Tyler asked about as we open it up. And he said, do you have any idea of when Ryan Day will talk to the media next? I know it had been rumored that he'd talk to y'all on National Signing Day, which was Wednesday. then I heard most of the staff was on vacation this week. Yeah, I had hinted with that, and I mentioned that on Talking Tuesday with Television's Adam King. Initially, that had been the plan, or at least that had been the expectation, that we would hear from Ryan Day and maybe some of the early enrollees and or transfer portal additions on Wednesday. That had been the case in the last couple of years. But once I think the television networks realized that there was no point in having signing day press conferences, and that was really what drove a lot of that over the previous years, was wall-to-wall coverage on BTN or ESPN of National Signing Day. Ohio State did take advantage of that, Birm, with some vacation on Wednesday. So I think that might have been the next press conference opportunity might have been pushed back to the middle of next week. But I can fully understand and perhaps even endorse all those coaches getting a chance to go away and relax and recharge a little bit after what happened in January.
Yeah, it's necessary. They work nonstop. They work very hard. I think that I can also understand why people would see in the last week big schools around the country, Georgia, Nebraska, other Texas, et cetera, having big recruiting weekends, et cetera. Ohio State has avoided that in the last few years, understanding that the weather in Columbus in January is not entirely predictable. And even when it's at its best, it's not really ideal. There's no football.
What about at its worst, like it's been for the last week and a half?
Right. And so at its worst, it's like, hey, let's make sure no one has to come here. And then, without football activities, without any of that stuff happening, the Buckeyes have taken the path of not doing those junior weekends in January. They have hosted major prospects. 5-star offensive lineman Maxwell Hiller was in town last weekend, et cetera. But they're on a break and they deserve it. But it's also a situation where there's a lot of things, and I know that you and I talked about this off air, but Ryan Day wants to make sure all of the ducks are in a row before he has to stand at a podium and answer questions about Arthur Smith, about Matthew Patricia, about Robbie Disher, about everything else. And so until all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, it doesn't make a lot of sense to force Ryan Day to stand up at the podium and say, I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that yet. We need to let this process play itself out first, et cetera. So, and I think that's where a lot of the primary conversational topics would have been. So it makes more sense to just wait until that happens. Let the new guys, the Earl Littles, the Terry Moores, get themselves into campus, get acclimated, get comfortable, get through a couple workouts, and then introduce them to the 60-person media throng that will be bothering them and harassing them and hounding their every move for the next year.
Yeah, I thought you could notice that a little bit, how complicated it would have been a week ago on the Ryan Day Coaches Show, that first, sort of quasi-press availability that he's had since the Cotton Bowl, where he was being asked about Arthur Smith, and he was talking about this home run hire, and it was like he was dealing with someone who'd committed to the program but hadn't signed yet. Like, never said Arthur Smith's name directly because that contract and then the ensuing confirmation of that didn't come out from Ohio State until Saturday of that week. So no sense in rushing that. I know that because of the volume of Arthur Smith questions that we got in the mailbag, I know that people want to hear from him. They want to hear his philosophy. I want to know more about Ryan Day's process that led to the hiring of Arthur Smith. Like, we all want to get into that. And in this day and age, immediacy, we want it now and we want it yesterday. But it's okay, especially if there is the thing where he would have to talk about whatever is going on with negotiations for Matt Patricia, the uncertainty of that, waiting for the Super Bowl and the possibility of the Raiders, which, again, I don't know how likely or unlikely it is, other than there has just been contact, and we know that Tom Brady has interest in Matt Patricia. Does that mean he's the leading candidate for that job? Don't know. Doesn't seem like it based on the reporting that's actually coming from the people on the ground following the Raiders. But, until all of that is settled, I'm okay with waiting one more week. I wasn't upset by that at all.
No, and you shouldn't be. It's February 6th. Like, people need a little bit of a break, and the coaches go through a ton of stuff. It's not every coach on vacation. I want to be clear. In fact, as I said on this show on Wednesday, I was told pretty explicitly that Keenan Bailey and Arthur Smith were in the building this week working on offensive, scheme and figuring out what this is going to look like as they try to get ready for spring practice, which starts in 5 weeks, 4.5 weeks. So there's a lot to do, but it is still a good time for the coaches to get out. They have, like, this week and 1 week in July that they can actually spend time with their families. So I feel like they should be allowed to do that without people questioning their commitment to the program.
They get a little bit more after camps in June and July. That's like a 3-week stretch, but that's
Okay.
it. All right. 1 month out of the year. That's all you get. Like this. So thanks to Tyler for that question.
Let me ask you this, because I know that, on the Talking Tuesday episode, you and Adam, the television's Adam King, talk about what you want to ask. Was there anything that you didn't mention on that episode that, like, whether it's roster wise, whether it's philosophy and roster building wise, is there something else other than coaching personnel questions that you're actually interested in finding out next week if we get Ryan Day and the coaches?
Yeah, but I think, I would need like 2 hours to talk to Ryan Day about everything that's been going on with roster management because it used to be, this, Birm, the signing day press conference, you'd like to be able to go through everyone that they brought in. Early in my career, not just at Ohio State, but even previously, like programs would turn that into like hour-long breakdowns, going through every single player. I remember, at my first job covering Wyoming, that's a very different animal, obviously, than Ohio State, but like they would show like highlights. Like you'd go in, they'd put the lights down low. It would turn into like a booster event as well, in addition to a press conference, and like show this is what this player can do. Here's where he played high school ball. Here's the stats. Like I know that hasn't always been the exact same case, but like Urban Meyer and Ryan Day have both been pretty thorough in describing, who was key in their recruitment, if there was difficulties in it, how they see them fitting in, and now you have to extrapolate that into your transfer portal class and the needs that you had on your roster. And someone like Terry Moore that you mentioned, for example, like that's more of a medical question than his actual productivity question, because you can look back at 2024 and see that he was playing at a really high level. And if that's the version you get, that makes a lot of sense. But is he ready to compete on day one of winter workouts? Is he going to be able to go through the first mat drills? Is he going to, have a full spring? Like I assume that's the case, but I don't know, because we haven't got to talk to him about, that specifically. So the roster configuration and the players that are brought in, that's to me like the getting to know you stuff with not just them, but also the coaching staff and the position coaches, that I could spend hours talking about that. And I would very much like to.
Yeah. When you were in Wyoming, did you have to like deliver newspapers with kids or like help them milk cows to really get to know them? How did that process work? Did you and Craig Bull go milk cows together?
Craig Bull was not the coach at Wyoming when I was in college or when I was covering the team.
Have you called Craig Bull since and asked if you could go milk cows together?
I have not. But
I just want to remind you, this show started with you saying you were all out of F's to give. Well, I've got more. And mine are questions about milking cows with Craig Bull.
Yeah. Well, it's a fair question for sure. Did not do that. In fact, at that time, I actually really needed those film breakdowns because like we didn't cover Wyoming recruiting at all at the Casper Star Tribune. So the day that they signed was the day that I learned who most of those people were.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's not how it is.
And I'm only slightly better now.
Yeah. That's not how it is at Ohio State. Obviously.
Yeah. What question did you have?
No, I mean, ultimately, mostly that's it. I'm really fascinated about the Justin Martin discussion, just in exactly where that goes. I know it maybe seems irrelevant to the big picture of this season for Ohio State, or probably any season for Ohio State, because I don't know that Justin Martin's ever going to really be the guy that is going to take meaningful snaps and reps at Ohio State. But I would love to know how that conversation went. Like, what do you tell a kid who comes in with 2 years to play, knowing that he's behind a first-round pick in Julian Sayin and is then going to compete against the number one ranked player in the country in his high school class, Tavian St. Clair? What do you say to a kid in that situation to make him go, that's what I want to do? Like, because it's not Gunnar Hoke or Chris Chuganoff or someone like that wants to get in and start diving into being a coach. I mean, he's Justin Martin chose Ohio State because he wants to play. So I would love to know some of the details in that. And then, of course, the question that we really dove into on Wednesday, which is like, what the heck is happening at running back and how is this going to work this spring? Because that seems pressing.
It does. Jim, for question number 2 on a Freaky Friday presented by the Waterworks, which I must remind you, I am compelled to let you know that the seasons change, but comfort doesn't. So call the Waterworks and Hetter Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing for maintenance, installation, and repairs, or visit online at thewaterworks.com. The Waterworks and Hetter Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, a proud sponsor of Ohio State athletics, which is still where Jeremiah Smith plays. Jim said, why do so many commentators specifically say that Jeremiah Smith is the best player in college football and then turn around and say they are voting for someone else for the Heisman Trophy? It's a great question.
Yeah. Well, it's because people are telling on themselves because they don't know what the award is actually for. And it's not for the guy who's going to be the number 1 pick. It's not for the best player. It's for the guy who had the best stats on the best team. And generally, it's going to be a quarterback, and everyone knows that. And that's just the way it goes. Now, is it stupid? Of course it's stupid. All these awards are stupid. We've talked about that ad nauseum in the past, but like, if everyone objectively looked at the college football, top to bottom, who were the best players, 95% of the people would pick Jeremiah Smith as the first person that they would choose to build their team around, the guy that is the most physically dominant, the guy that is the most spectacular, all of those things. But people want to overcomplicate everything. And also, you don't want to give the award to the best player in the sport to a guy that plays on a bad team, or, we see it on the NFL all the time. Like the NFL MVP is always the quarterback of the best team. Like that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. I'm less worked up about where Jeremiah Smith finished in the Heisman Trophy voting last year than I am him not winning the Blitnikoff, which, these voters, they think that I forgot about that. No, sir, I haven't. That is the biggest travesty because most of these people can all uniformly agree. And they didn't reveal their ballots or why they passed on Jeremiah Smith for that award. And they don't have to, but I can go look and just see the volume of analysis that Jim is referencing, not just on television, but national narratives, national writing about, like, everyone immediately talks about Jeremiah Smith anytime the conversation begins about the Buckeyes. It's not just that Julian Sain is coming back. It's always Jeremiah Smith. Everyone knows he's not just the best wide receiver, but he's the best player in college football, and that he would be the number 1 pick if he was in the NFL draft right now. Like that gets me more worked up than anything else. The Heisman, as you said, it is largely given to quarterbacks on the best team. I don't really have a problem with that, to be honest with you, given how important that position is to success in college football. I do think that the voting would often look a lot different. Now, it wouldn't have in the 2025 season if they waited until after the college football playoff, where someone like Ezekiel Elliott might have deservingly claimed it after the 2014 season. And you might see other position players claim that if you gave them that extended body of work in the games that mattered the most against talent equated opponents. But that's, again, going down a path that regular listeners of the beat already know how I feel about award voting and how broken it is for college football. But there are a lot. Jeremiah Smith, I think, is revealing a lot of that, not just with the Heisman, but with position awards voting.
Yeah, it's the same thing that Ohio State coaches have experienced for 50 years. Buckeyes coaches don't win Coach of the Year because the Buckeyes are supposed to have the best players. And so the best players at Ohio State, guys like Jeremiah Smith, not only does he have to be the best player, he has to be the most spectacular player week in and week out. Like, he has to have highlights, and the Buckeyes then have to win every game and win championships. And I don't, it's funny in a way, because I don't think anyone looks at the Mekhi Lemon being named the Biletnikoff winner and say, hey, that guy wasn't deserving, because he was really good. And he's probably the second best receiver in America this year. And I think that's fine. But this is not a Jeremiah Smith problem. This is a Marvin Harrison problem. When Marvin, was given the Biletnikoff in a year when he probably didn't deserve it, because he didn't win it in the years that he did. And so, but he went through that. The Buckeyes, obviously, Garrett Wilson everyone knew Garrett Wilson was the best receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's gone on and on for Ohio State players throughout the last couple decades. It's not really new, but it is annoying, because I think Ryan Day, it will never win a Coach of the Year award. Like, if Ohio State would have won the national championship this year and the Buckeyes would have finished out the season undefeated and run the table, he still wouldn't have won. Even though they've replaced 18 starters or whatever on their entire team from a national championship team. It would have been like, well, that's just what's expected at Ohio State. That's what you're supposed to do.
He met the standard, and anything less than that is unacceptable.
We're not going to be not meeting the standard. Oh, my back hurts.
That shirt does look a little loose on you, Birm.
Thanks. It feels good. You know what Awaken 180 has done for me, Austin? It has given me confidence to wear shirts that are a little loose on me now. I feel so much better. I feel so much healthier. I feel
That's
so much
what
better.
it did to you?
Yeah. I did go to the doctor on Thursday morning. As I said, I had a doctor's appointment. They were amazed at the change in my blood work from the last time I was at the doctor about 7 months ago. So that's pretty good. Awaken180.com, awaken180weightloss.com. Go there. You are going to find all the tools you need. You've got coaching, you've got apps, you've got technology. They send you a scale that gives you like the finest, most up-to-date information about your body day in, day out. It's been great. The food is not a problem. Like I was never hungry throughout the entire process, which is something I would have never expected. Awaken180weightloss.com. Go there, find out what I did, find out what Austin did, find out what others have done, get healthy, feel better.
Well said. Question number 3 arrives from Sean. We got a 2-pack of Arthur Smith questions that I wanted to tie together a little bit. Because one has a little bit of skepticism, and that's this one. I'm trying to remain positive about the Arthur Smith hire, but if I'm being honest, I was really hoping for an NFL or college offensive coordinator that runs the spread offense. More jumbo 12 and 13 packages sounds like more 1 yard and a cloud of dust results. Not even Woody would go for that. Am I off base here? I understand the impulse and I understand where that skepticism comes from, but the way this was described to me, and I also read a couple stories about it in the last couple of weeks where people were talking about the shifts in defensive philosophies and why the evolution has gone away from spread as defenses have figured out how to defend that and eliminate the explosive plays downfield, that the countermeasure for offenses has been to go back to heavier personnel packages. And we already saw Ohio State do that. And if that's what they're going to lean into and major in, Arthur Smith is, I think, the prime pick to get that done for them. Now, I don't know if that's right or wrong. We're going to find out by the time September rolls around, but I understand what Ryan Day is trying to accomplish and how Arthur Smith can help him do that.
I mean, I saw a tweet the other day. I think it's looking at it right now from at BC Fremeau, Fremeau. It was actually a thread on the Letterman Row message board about the different trends in college sports and the way things are changing and the difference in the way possessions are. The points per game have reached a 15-year low. Plays per game have held steady. Points per possession are level. Plays per possession are at an all-time high. Like this is the way the game is going. Teams are working to prevent teams from having offenses that were built the way Ohio State's had been, which is the big play, the Bengals offense. You're not going to allow Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to always beat you with. So you're going to put 2 deep and force them to keep chinking, chunking, and dinking and dunking and getting the play, a little slower offense, and that's okay. Ohio State is totally fine with that when you have a talent advantage that allows you to take advantage of it and take some home run shots with the running backs, as we talked about this week. So I don't think that the Arthur Smith hire guarantees Ohio State is slower. I don't think you can really get slower than they were. But that was intentional. I think what you get out of this is more efficiency, hopefully, by a guy who understands what he's asking kids to do a little bit better than we saw a year ago. And that ultimately will be the difference, because the 12 and 13 personnel, like that's not new. This is not Ryan Day just deciding to do that in the last year. This has always been Ryan Day's preference. Back in 2020, when the Ohio State offense with Justin Fields was really humming, and this was at a time when they didn't have much of a run game at all, it was still 12 personnel almost the entire time with Luke Farrell and Jeremy Ruckert. So if this has been the way Ryan Day wants it, the difference was in the explosive player path, in the explosive player category for Ohio State. So if you can find those guys, you can still run the jumbo packages and score quickly out of it. You're allowed. You don't have to, just because you have 2 tight ends on the field or 3 tight ends doesn't mean you can't score. Like that's not what it's meant to be. But again, Ryan Day didn't hire Arthur Smith to run more 13 personnel. He hired him to make sure that the run game, whether it's 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever, is better. And so That's the key. It's not about how many tight ends are on the field. Is it effective when they're on the field?
Yeah. I mean, and we put this on Wednesday in context compared to, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, which I think is important. But even if you're talking about 2020, 2019, like the home run hitting ability of J.K. Dobbins, and then if things were blocked up, his ability to maximize that and ultimately rush for 2,000 yards, like that wasn't being done out of spread formations. As you said, it was a lot of 12 personnel. It was a lot of Ruckert and Farrell moving people and contributing to the offensive line. And so I also don't want to go as far as saying, well, the running back explosivity last year is the only thing that kept Ohio State from winning a national championship. I don't believe that's true either. I think you can look at some of the lack of consistency at times from the offensive line, the lack of cohesion, I thought, from the play calling and the game planning, combined with things that we've talked about where Julian Sayin can get better, combined with the fact that when the other pieces were all working together and it was blocked up well for a Bo Jackson or a CJ Donaldson or anybody else, that it was 7 or 8 yards instead of 70 or 80. And it's not just one thing. So Arthur Smith's job, Ryan Day's job is not just to fix, it's to make enhancements to all 5 of those things that we mentioned. And that's not going to be easy.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the run game that lacked explosion last year. I mean, the passing game, especially when Carnell Tate got hurt, when you took away the alternative to Jeremiah Smith and teams could really shade coverage and cloud cover him the whole time, then you took that away. The more that you can throw the ball down the field, the more you can open up the run game. That's not really rocket surgery. Everyone knows how that goes. So I think, and if you ever watch me play Madden or watch me play NCAA football on the PlayStation 5, all I do is spread them out. Okay, I got 4 wide all game, buddy. All right, that's what I love. That's what I want. But that's not real life, and that's not where defenses are going right now. And especially now in this era of college football, because the way that pressure is being applied from defenses, like you don't have the ability to go out there and not protect your quarterback because your quarterback's costing you $5+ million. And if you let him get hurt, guess what that backup's costing you? Justin Martin, right? Yeah. So like you have to protect your guys. You got to find a way to win. And in 16, 17 game seasons, the only thing that matters is who has the trophy at the end. Like I don't, style points are gone. Who gives a crap?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well said. Following up on that, Michael said, given Arthur Smith's tendencies in the league, combined with Ohio State's returning production at wide receiver and running back, what are your expectations for the distribution of play calls between run and pass this season? Don't want this to be a cop-out answer, but it's also what I go back to with having a conversation with Arthur Smith, introductory press conference, Ryan Day here, because I don't actually think, I haven't heard Ryan Day say 250, 250, 50-50 play calling the way that Urban Meyer used to as the goal. I think Ryan Day tends to want to run it more than he throws it, which seems counterintuitive to many folks, but like I bet 60-40 is his ideal breakdown, especially in this era of controlling the clock. And if he can rely on the running backs to hit, like we just talked about, and none of that is a certainty, but I don't think that this team will be constructed in a way that it wants to be an air raid style, like nonstop assault. Like I don't think that that's the reality of what he wants or what Arthur Smith is coming to Ohio State to provide.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's the number of plays. I think it's the efficiency of the plays. If Ohio State can get to 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing every game, they're going to be thrilled. If that happens with 4 carries or 40 carries, I don't think it really matters as long as the Buckeyes are finding ways to be balanced, as long as the offense is taking advantage of the talent that it has, as long as the opportunities to take advantage of the opponents you're playing are being capitalized on. That's what matters. There's going to be some games like last year's game against Wisconsin. The Buckeyes came out and threw it, 11 straight times to start the game, threw for 400 yards. You didn't have to run the ball that day. You build your roster if you're a program like Ohio State because you want to be able to run it when you have to run it. You need to be able to pass it when you need to pass it. Obviously, the ideal scenario is always to be balanced, to be efficient. That was the Urban Meyer, motto forever: 250, 250. Now, 500 yards a game anymore seems like it might be a stretch, considering what we already talked about with the way that games are going and the number of plays and the times per possession and blah blah blah. But I would imagine you're still going to see somewhere in that 53 to 47% range of pass to run or run to pass based on, I would be shocked as we sit here. It's February the 6th. If we look back a year from now and the first bold prediction of 2026 would be if there's a percentage gap of more than 4% between pass and run for Ohio State, I'd be shocked. However it breaks out. I just don't like that is the Ryan Day offense. It has always been a pro style divided if you can make sure it works on both sides of the ball, both sides of the offense type of plan. So I don't think that'll change.
Yeah, and it has always included the tight end, so that's not going to change either. Bonus question number 5. This came from Mike. Who determines when or if Ohio State will wear alternate color jerseys? Is it a Ryan Day call, or does Ross Bjork have the final say? I don't know who gets the last thumbs up or thumbs down, but all of them are involved, and Nike is also involved because the last time that I had any conversation, Birm, maybe you know more specifics about the process, but I know I was told that it takes like 18 months for Ohio State to get the uniforms selected, approved, made by Nike and in place for the following year, which is why the infamous Land of the Wolves grays came out a year after that was the actual theme that the team used. And they didn't actually make sense, and they looked horrible, and it was nonsensical all the way around. I do know that once they have all these people getting together to make that decision about how they want to do it, and if they're going to put together scarlet outs, blackouts, theme days in the horseshoe, that there has been a shift. I'm curious if you've had any conversations with recruits or recent players about this, because everyone has suggested to me that that's not really something that moves the needle that much anymore. Like it used to be, even Oregon's not doing it quite to the level that they used to. It feels like the alternative jersey craze has kind of come and gone.
Well, yeah, because now you can give kids money. So they don't care what they wear. It is interesting. Obviously, it's a topic that people are kind of obsessively weird about. Like, I will say this: if Ross Bjork has ever woken up in the middle of the night in a cold panic and a sweat, thinking, "Oh my gosh, what jerseys are the Buckeyes wearing this weekend?" I bet I would like to have a conversation with him about it, because I think it would indicate that he needs some professional help that he can't get potentially from anyone in Columbus. But certainly he's not deciding that. Certainly Ryan Day's not deciding that. It is through the equipment room, and it's through Nike, and how you get, like last summer when the blackout was discussed and put all over social media for the Penn State game, if you recall, everyone was like, "Oh, Buckeyes are wearing black uniforms." And that day, I think we were at a one-day camp in June.
Yeah.
And I saw one of the equipment guys and I said, "Hey, blackout in November 1st, is that?" And he said, "We don't have black uniforms this year." So he knew in June they didn't have black uniforms, because they don't have, it's not like they have a room in the back of the Woody that just has 120 black jerseys, scarlet jerseys, gray jerseys. They have to order them. They have to get them in. They have to get new helmets. They have to get them, as you said, approved by Nike. That's why, the infamous conversation we had after the Cotton Bowl with EQ Kevin Reese after last year's Cotton Bowl against Texas, when I said, "Hey, what about the legacy stripes? What about the heritage stripes?" And then he mentioned something about those coming back in 2026. And I'm like, "Oh, really?" But like the last time I asked, I was like, "It's not that simple." Okay, maybe not. So we don't know. I would imagine the players get a say if they know, "Hey, we have these uniforms for this season. Which games do you want?" I bet there's some conversation that goes to the heart of that and says, "Hey, what do you guys want to wear for this game?" But ultimately, Ohio State still pretty much prefers, I think, to just be its traditional scarlet and gray.
Yeah.
And I wish that they wouldn't, because I absolutely hate the black stripes on the jerseys. I know that's like an old school thing, but I want the heritage stripes. I think they're the nicest Ohio State jerseys out there.
Yeah. I would also say, if we're talking about final decision making between Ryan Day or Ross Bjork on the jerseys that Ohio State is going to wear onto the field, that Ryan Day does have more influence over that than the athletic director.
I would suggest that as well. Hey, it's the end of the show. And
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, how many of your predictions for the Royal Rumble came true?
Oh, you wanted to talk about wrestling on this show?
No, I just wanted to know, like, did either of your predicted winners win, or did one of my predicted winners win?
Here's how my predictions went, Berm. Poorly, like as bad as they possibly could have. Do you know why? Because I
one of mine was right.
Well, that hurts, but I'm talking about just how bad. Like you could have got just one elimination from your picks, and it would have been better than what I had, which was suggesting that Braun Breaker was going to win the Royal Rumble, then drawing the number 2 slot and getting attacked by a masked man, and then immediately eliminated by Obafemi within 10 seconds. That was my pick to win the Rumble. He was gone before it had even started. And then I decided to go really crazy and suggest that a returning Bianca Belair would win the Women's Royal Rumble, and she didn't even enter it. So big swing and a miss from wrestling fan, not expert, Austin Ward. Meanwhile, you got Roman Reigns correct.
I told you, never go against the family. That's Roman Reigns' thing. He does that thing where he's in the car and he gets on the wheel and he looks over and he does this to the guy in the car next to him, and then they speed off. That's what he says.
That's the Fast and the Furious.
Isn't Roman Reigns in the Fast and the Furious?
Well, he's in the spinoff. He's in Hobbs and Shaw. He's not the other member of his family.
I wonder if Bill Watterson.
Boss.
I wonder if Bill Watterson will ever come back and write a Calvin and Hobbs and Shaw. That would be awesome.
It's apparently the end of a Freaky Friday. We got a Fast and Furious.
I would like to see cartoon Calvin. I'd like to see cartoon Calvin, a sticker on the back of a car with him peeing on Jason Statham.
That would be certainly unexpected. I didn't know which one was which. If Calvin was is Calvin the kid or the tiger? I didn't even know which one was which.
Calvin's the kid.
Oh, okay. I'm just double checking. I needed your expertise for that. I didn't know that you were such a big Calvin and Hobbes head.
Of course,
but now I'm
a 47-year-old man from the Midwest. I grew up on the adventures of that boy and his ragged tiger.
Hobbes.
Yes.
And Shaw. Got it.
No, Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Of course. Yeah. Silly me. And silly into the show. That's what happens when we get to the end of the week. Hope you all enjoy the Super Bowl. We will be back on Monday, I think, with a Born Blitz. The man is very busy. Also going to try and get him in for some live show action next week because Bob and Jay-Z will be gone. So a couple changes to the lineup, but of course we'll keep things rolling 5 days a week with the Austin Birm Show, The Beat, presented by the Waterworks, no matter what, as we break it down. And hopefully we'll hear from Ryan Day as well. But until then, have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. And we'll see you on Monday. He's Berm. I'm Austin. So long.